All right, hi, I am Jay Unrau. I am the digital literacy librarian at Strathcona County Library, which is, as we said, out in Sherwood Park, just east of the city here. I am here today as a public librarian who does not work with creating tools for library infrastructure, these kinds of things. I'm not here talking about a cool, exciting project, but to share a bit with an academic audience like you about what library work with technology and the public looks like when we try to deal ethically with the terrible, grim, depressing world beyond our bubbles. Hooray! So, as a digital literacy librarian, my job is part of our library's strategic plan. There's a section in there called the Digital Literacy Strategy, where part of the library's goals are to foster digital inclusion and citizenship in our county. My job is to help our library choose how we satisfy those goals. And so these choices are shaped by a number of things, including my skills, the skills of my fellow library workers, what we have the funds and staffing to provide, but also by more explicitly political concerns like protecting the library from litigation and satisfying the world-defiling corporations that sponsor our programs. The Enbridge logos on our summer reading things are great. Yeah, but that is a separate talk. Ideally, though, part of what is supposed to be shaping our decision-making here, our choices, is supposed to be some sort of librarianly values and things, whatever those may be. Now, Sam Popovich recently wrote about that Marx's free development of each as a condition for the free development of all might be a good starting place to work from there. And so that's kind of what I'm going to use here. So it is my thesis in this talk that the library workers helping that the library workers who are helping the free development of each of our eaches have a lot of problems. So let's look at the kind of problems we face at the Public Library Help Desk. So it's important to note here that when we are helping the public, we aren't solely helping people connect with library services, the things that you are all making, all of these things that we're doing here. We are dealing with the rest of the technological world. Like, there's the stuff the library pays for, and there's the rest of the internet and all of the devices that connect to it, and that is my job. So when you are the free tech help desk for the public, you get used to explaining the things that we in this room probably all do every day without thinking. Like we do have to explain about apps and ebooks and stuff, but we also have to explain to people why they can't access their Gmail account through the library website. We have to, what is the difference between a text message and a Facebook message on your phone? Why can't you save the picture that your nephew posted on Instagram to your phone? So can we solve those? Well, it's one of those things. So those are the kinds of problems that we are dealing with on the desk there, but that is not the problem. The problem isn't that there are lots and lots of things that we're dealing with. The problem isn't that it's too complicated or too hard for our library workers to be helping people with all of these things. We do algorithmic literacy, but that doesn't solve the problem. The problem we have in library technology help is the power imbalance between the library user and the gigantic corporations that are scare quote providing these services. I hope that made the transcription. Big tech doesn't care. So part of the reason why we need to provide this help to users and hence support this technology-driven status quo is that the systems we buy into with our money and support with our teaching and normalize with our attitude is opaque to our users. Large corporations set the rules and we are expected by our organizations to teach people how to think within those systems. So this is the big education project we are engaged with when we show people how to work their little surveillance devices in their pockets, how to be compliant with the systems they don't understand. And just like the just add technology theory of transparency doesn't work, the just make it easier for the user approach doesn't either. Because when a for-profit tech company makes something smoother and easier, what friction are they getting rid of? They're getting rid of the friction that makes the money and things. They're getting the stuff that's getting in the way of profit, not the stuff that's getting in the way of their users developing themselves and their societies. So that expectation of user-friendly ease is this insidious thing, and library organizations are totally complicit with it. I think it's really easy for us to slip into a customer service model where we're looking for a happy user at the end of our interaction. Library workers tend to be helpful. We generally like to help. We, and our administrations especially, want our users to be happy at the end of our interaction because we were so helpful. And I think that people, our users at least, and most likely us tech helpers too, want things to be easy. It's easier to help when it's easy things. It's nice to think that if we just made things look simpler, then we'd have a simpler time helping people, and we'd get those happy customers even more simply. That things can be simple and look simple when there are billions of dollars to be made by keeping people from understanding how the world works is naive, but this is what we do. And doing this is a choice. So we can't just be aiming for happy customers that, thanks to the nice lady at the library, now know which icon to tap to give their lives to Facebook. We should be looking to empower them to develop themselves and further develop our world. So if people feel a sense of empowerment just because they learned how to update their privacy settings while still feeding their lives into the social media profit-generating vortex, even if they say they're more confident and happier, I think we're failing because they should be confused and angry. So don't get me wrong, things like the Library Freedom Project, that's great. And libraries doing education on privacy tools and stuff is great. But doing this kind of thing from a customer service mindset positions us in a place where we're trying to fulfill companies' promises of ease of use without being able to actually give our users control over what they need. What we're doing is teaching people how to deal with being part of a system that is destroying us rather than trying to resist that system itself, to use what power we actually have to make things better. Which brings us to the problem is, of course, capitalism, and how it's created a world where we have a few decades of livable climate left. Obviously, that is the problem. And whenever us well-meaning technology helping type people show someone just how to think like the machine and speak so the machine will understand us better, it's at the very least not helping with that. But, okay, so let's get back to how we do deal with this at our library, because that is my job. I have this job because I can help people with their techno woes. I can understand and explain them even if I don't actually have the power to tear down capitalism and my users wouldn't actually want me to try. But what we can do is try to make things difficult. So we often joke at our library, and probably at yours, about hoping things stay unfriendly and complicated for users, because that is our job security. That's one of these things. In our library, it's often like Adobe Digital Editions and the complicated nature of getting an ebook onto a Kobo kind of thing has meant tech help jobs for ages and things. But I actually do think that there's something to things being complicated. When something is complicated, we have to think about it. We think about how it works and why it works the way it does. Everyone here who's written a line of code knows about that value. There's that Douglas Adams bit about the true value of a computer is being a really stupid student. So the teacher needs to figure out things exactly and properly so that they can explain them. And yes, it is more complicated to set up a secure password manager, or use Tor for browsing the internet, or to strip the digital rights management off of ebooks to put them on unsanctioned e-readers for unsanctioned amounts of time. But the simple alternatives only seem simple if everything works the way they're designed by those with power. And those designs are based on keeping power away from our individuals and our societies. But just make it more complicated is obviously a sentiment coming from a very privileged place here. It is my job to deal with this kind of thing, and I shouldn't be asking everyone in the world to be like me, which is knowledgeably confused and angry. So what can we do? So this is the issue that I've had a lot of trouble with earlier in my library career. Before reading Shannon Valor's book, Technology and the Virtues, which I believe I found through the Librarian Shipwreck blog, Valor's book is kind of a summary of Aristotelian and Buddhist and Confucian virtue ethics and how we can use them and the virtue ethic model to lead a moral life in a technologically mediated world. So Virtue ethics kind of assume that you can't just make a simple rule to follow and remember, because the world and its circumstances constantly change, and we need to approach situations specifically. So one of the big things is to cultivate good habits and approaches that can be applied flexibly to the changing situation of life. And so this is something that we can apply. We can actually apply this in helping people with their phones. So what does that look like? So there are some libraries, like Toronto Public Library does a big digital privacy week thing, and which is cool and stuff, and I think it's great. But doing a big event focused on one ethical issue is not really as important as infusing it into our regular offerings, into everything that we are doing. So like at our library, we do somewhere around 15 hours each month teaching digital literacy classes. And we spend about 25 hours each month doing one-on-one technology help. Our online privacy tools, our cloud computing, our password tools classes, they're regular offerings that we've designed. These are new classes that we've done that are designed around the principles of Valour's techno-moral education thing. So there's stuff about cross-contextual habituation, studying exemplars, practicing skills of discernment, and things like this is something that we don't call it all of that when we're telling people about things, but that's how those are the roots there. So one of the things that how this works is my coworkers and I can disagree on the value of some things like privacy education for our users who are mostly white senior citizens who are fairly well off. But one of the things we do our best to talk about is how we, as library workers who've had time to think about these technologies, how we use them. And this leaves things kind of up to our individual instructors, who sometimes will err on the side of expediency. It's like, okay, just push this button and we'll just get through this kind of thing. But it has also led to one of my colleagues offering a class called Intro to Voice Assistant, in which she spends 90 minutes squicking everyone out about the gadget their well-meaning relative gave them for Christmas. It's awesome. What I haven't been able to really do, though, is make change at the institutional level. So, a topical example. Do you know what lynda.com is? It is a site full of instructional videos that have some quality control. So it is better than YouTube and things. It's a resource that's very good for learning about the tools white-collar, business-ish people use in their work and stuff. If your library had a subscription, you could log in with your library barcode number, learn all about pivot tables and nonlinear video editing without needing to pay to subscribe yourself. So Microsoft bought LinkedIn, who bought Lynda, and I don't know the order of all of that. And this fall, they were going to be transitioning libraries over to using LinkedIn Learning instead of lynda.com. LinkedIn, of course, touted these changes as making things easier for the users because now they can use the app. But now library users can't just sign in with a library barcode and PIN. And I am aware that SIP2 is bad and all of that kind of thing, but bear with me here. But now they needed to create a LinkedIn account, a social media account, which by default would be indexed by Google, to watch videos the library is paying for. So if you believe Jaron Lanier of 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Accounts right now, LinkedIn is not the worst of the social media companies. But if you believe Shoshana Zuboff of The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, you're probably pretty leery of Microsoft feeding all this detail about how your library users are educating themselves into their AI projects. So I don't know what we should be doing as kind of techno-moral exemplars in this case. I mean, I know we shouldn't be just saying, well, that's the way of the world now, and throwing our library users to the tender mercies of the Google. But I also know that I will have very little institutional support for getting our IT staff to build a tool that could expropriate all the videos from lynda.com and host them on our own servers so users wouldn't be exposed to all of that. Although that would be a really cool project, and if you do that at Hackfest, that would be awesome. At our organization, the plan has been to educate people how to change their privacy settings so they aren't web searchable. And this is, again, that, oh, we're being helpful, the kind of thing. And it's kind of flawed. It's putting the onus on us as educators and the public as users rather than on the company to make a better product. So I would much rather take the approach of building the kind of future we want by not paying for the kind we don't want, but I am obviously not the kind of librarian anyone trusts with vendor negotiations. So I'm going to end with a bit from Wendell Berry in Unsettling America, mostly because I like using his challenges of big technology in human-scale farming with human-scale library work. So his quote is this: "It is an old story. Evil is offering us the world. All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. And we have only the old paradox for an answer. If we accept all on that condition, we lose all. What is new is the guise of this evil, a limitless technology, dependent upon a limitless morality, which is to say, upon no morality at all." So here we are. We're stuck with our evil in a status quo that pretends to be simple because that is what is profitable for others, not what is of value to our users. While a shallow education in what works is good for organizations trying to prove their relevance, it's a matter of throwing people into a thresher, not providing them with meaningful ways to develop themselves and their communities. As library workers, I think it is our job to be reflective, critical, and resistant, and stop making it easy for those limitless appetites to devour everything. And I hope you are trying to do that too.
That was great. Does anyone have any questions?
It's okay if you don't.
Oh, I thought so.
Oh no, oh no.
Thanks, that was absolutely great. So okay, if we wanted to do anything like increasing moments of friction to help our users understand their place in this world, how do we protect that layer of the work that we're doing against the administration that has its own priorities?
That is, yeah. I think one of the things actually where we get into that layer of friction kind of thing, when we're talking about the minimal computing and stuff there, the being like, when we talk about, I guess, adding in, okay, so this is why I write everything down and things. Protecting that is a thing about talking about it as a skill-building thing and talking to our administrations about this is, we aren't just how, it's the same thing about why we give a kid a Raspberry Pi instead of an iPad kind of thing. We say, if you learn how to use this thing, if you learn how to make this thing do something, it builds character, kind of thing. We totally use the dad argument of, yes, don't worry, it builds character, kind of thing. I think like that is probably a way that we can do it. I don't know how that helps at the, like how that helps at the point of the information desk kind of thing there, because we like, how it generally works, how we do it is we tend to be like, oh, why is this so complicated? And we explain this is why it's so complicated because publishers make it like this so that we have to put this on here. If you are interested in a different way of doing things, I can teach you, but it's going to be more complicated kind of thing. And I have had people take me up on that. I guess I've been a librarian for 8 years now, and I think I've had people take me up on it 3 times. So it's one of those things, and so our administration say, that's not what our people want. That's not what our users want. And it's like, but that's what they need. And so I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, maybe? Yeah, okay.
It's kind of just to follow up on that, like, and I don't mean to be the devil's advocate.
No.
I really loved your presentation, but I used to work in a historic site, and we would always say, like, people have many reasons to visit a historic site. Like, sometimes they don't actually care about history at all. They just want to come chat with you. So, like, in that vein, if what people want is just help to get on Facebook, do you feel like you're doing them a disservice or ever, like, burdening them with information they're not desiring?
Well, when we do that, so it is one of those things like often what happens is people who are, like when we are helping someone get onto Facebook, it's usually not at the, here's how to sign up for Facebook. It's like, they're like, I'm having problems with the app and things. And so we sit down, like we do these 1 hour, like sit down with a person. And it is one of those things that I didn't talk about it here, but there is this kind of emotional labor of we're being their kids. You know how your parents ask the kids for help with their technology? We're kind of being that because their kids are just fed up with this kind of thing. So there is that kind of emotional, affective work that we're doing and having that chat and stuff there. And it's not even just a reference interview because we're talking about things and it's like, well, what do you want to use this for? And they say, I don't know. And we say, well, you know what? You don't have to do this. Like, you really don't. And things. And then they say, but my nephew only posts his pictures on here. And I'm like, okay, well, to get what you need out of here, here's what we can do. And yeah, but like we just have to talk about it and have more context. And that's one of those things that having that conversation, actually sitting there with the person and talking about it is really important and stuff. And that it's not just hand them a thing of like, here's your settings and you're good to go, I guess.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Jay. That was really great.